several years ago, we had triplets that ended up passing away. And so that deeply, affected our lives. And from that, we've had this passion for how can we help children, right? And children's ministries. And
when I went to your website, it almost read like a ministry.
My goodness, what better way to be able to be a witness for the Lord today? I mean, I'm only working kind of half a day, but I'll have 20 people come into my room today that I can hopefully positively impact with the love of the Lord.
Hey, welcome to the Living Enviado podcast. Before we get into this riveting conversation with my guest today, I just want to ask you to do one act of kindness today. And that act of kindness is to subscribe to this podcast. By doing so, it will help us tremendously. And while you're at it, don't forget to visit our website at livingenviado.com, where you'll see information about our merch store, as well as information about why we exist as a business and podcast. So without further ado, let's welcome my guest today, Gabe O'Sullivan. Hey, Gabe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's really an honor to be here.
So the reason I reached out to you is, nobody's going to know this till I say it, but you're my chiropractor. You're a friend. I've known you for, 7, 8 years, maybe.
At least, yeah.
Something like that.
So. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the reason I invited you on here is because, 6 months or so, I don't really go look at business websites. For you, I don't need to because I know where your business is at. I know where to call and make an appointment, things like that. But I decided to go on there, and I don't even know why, but I started reading through your mission statement, started reading through your vision, and just everything you have about your chiropractic practice, and which is unique. And we're going to get into that because that's what kind of drew me into inviting you on here. Okay. But I also know you're involved in a lot of things, and not just in the chiropractic world. But while you're very heavily involved there, you've got other things going on as well. And I also know you travel a lot. But why don't you just start with giving us like a 36,000 foot view of who Gabe Sullivan is?
Yeah.
O'Sullivan.
Yeah, that's right. O'Sullivan.
You're not David Sullivan.
No, that's right. He is my buddy though. And I think a lot of him. Yeah, I always tell David, I said, they tell me when I start making money, I can drop the O, so I can be like, join his clan. But right now we have to keep the O. So yeah, Gabriel O'Sullivan, born and raised basically right here in the upstate of South Carolina. My wife is named Ryan. She and I met when we were in 8th grade. Her family moved to South Carolina from California. They're originally from Columbia, but they lived out there a couple of years with her dad's work, and they moved here. We started going to school together. She moved to Dawkins. I ended up inviting them to church. We started going to church together. We were just friends for a couple of years, and then started dating in 11th grade, and we haven't stopped. She was a believer. I was a believer. I'd come to faith early in life, around 10 years old or something. I always say that my faith journey was really interesting because I lived with my mom and stepdad, and then on the weekends I would go visit my dad and stepmom. And for my younger life, I guess, 1 year old, 2 year old, whatever, up until about 8 or 9 or 10 years old, like they were the only ones that took me to church when I didn't go to church with my other set of parents who I lived with.
Your dad took you to church?
My dad and stepmom, that's
okay.
right. So I was hearing, the gospel, but at that age, like I just remember thinking like, hey, it's just, my relationship with God is predicated on me reading the Bible and praying and trying to be a good kid. And that's kind of what I thought, made me right with God. And I will never forget, I was at an upward basketball camp when I was about 10 years old. And we had every day after lunch, they would have us like a little rest time, so to speak. And they would have a speaker, come and give a devotion. And this one particular day, the speaker gave the devotion, then he gave like an invitation, and he said, hey, if you want to give your life to Christ, raise your hand and then go to this room and talk to this guy. And he was like, if you want to rededicate your life, raise your hand. Okay, you get up and you go to this other room and talk to this other guy. So I went with those guys because I thought, well, okay, I haven't been reading my Bible as much lately. I haven't been praying as much. I've been, maybe mean to my little brother or something to that effect. And I got in that room, and this guy starts kind of drawing the old, I call it like the old Campus Crusade for Christ, like brochure, about carnal man versus, spiritual man. He starts drawing those diagrams, which I didn't learn until much later in life. He starts drawing those on the whiteboard or chalkboard maybe at the time. And he was talking about Jesus having lordship over your life and him being your king and you not being your king. And I just remember thinking, like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. What is he talking about? Jesus being my king and Jesus being Lord. And it was that day that I realized I did not have a relationship with Christ. It was that day that I realized that, having right standing before God was about repenting of my sin and trusting Christ as my Savior and making him my Lord and my King. And that just opened my eyes. Like, I went away from that meeting that day realizing that I did not have a relationship with Jesus. And I don't know if it was later that summer or the next summer, but my other family that I lived with had started going to church. Actually, we call it Church at the Mill now, but back in the day, it was actually Anderson Mill Road Baptist Mission. We were not even a church yet.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, dude. This was like 87-ish, I guess. So we were not an official church yet. We were a mission out of the, South Carolina Baptist, convention, and we were on the west side of town there. We were meeting in some office spaces behind in a little strip mall at the time. And the pastor, one day, Pastor Loudermilk came over to our house and like just straight up laid out the gospel. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's what God's been teaching me. And so I gave my life to Christ that day in our living room. And so from that point on, just been trying to grow. Like, obviously, like every one of us, lots of ups, lots of downs, but just thankful for God's faithfulness and God using sports in my life in a way to like actually share the gospel with me and bring me to salvation. So my wife, she been following the Lord for a large portion of her life too. She was a Christian before I met her. And she's just been really influential in my spiritual journey as well. I'm so thankful for her. We have 3 children now. Avery, who just started college, much like your daughter this past week. And then we have a boy, Isaac, who's 13, and then another son, Tyson, who is 8.
So you've been at the mill the whole time?
Yes.
So your whole spiritual walk?
Yes. My other family, they went to First Baptist downtown. And
okay.
So that's where I was, grew up going there as well.
Oh, so you were really in both?
In both churches. Mm-hmm.
And
but
now you're an elder, or I don't know what you guys call it over there, deacon, elder.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of both. Yeah.
A little bit of both.
So yeah, been on the. Yes.
So you've seen it from a storefront to the facility that you're in now.
Right. Yeah.
Which is pretty massive.
Yes, it's been a journey.
Yeah, your church has a huge missions program.
Yes.
Probably one of the biggest in the city, I think, when you look at churches individually.
Yeah, it's a blessing. I mean, and that's a cool story I'll just get into real quick. So my buddy Jason Williamson's our missions pastor. Jason and I went on our first mission trip together in 2008 with a group called Impact Sports. We were invited. It was our church's first missions conference that my other buddy, Dr. Andy Mahoney, had put together for us. And
I know him.
Okay, yeah, awesome dude. Served in Madagascar for years. So we were invited by this leader of Impact to go to East Asia, and he said, "Hey, we're gonna go over there and play basketball and tell people about Jesus." And we were like, "Let's do it." Actually, we didn't say it that suddenly. I was like, "I don't know about this." Yeah, I was like, "I'm not sure about this." And I was giving all the excuses of why not to go. And Jason wasn't as reserved as I was, but long story short, in 6 weeks we're both over there. Jason took his wife as well. Another one of my good buddies, Brad Coggins, came. He's Brad, Sullivan, yeah, good buddy of Brad as well. So we all went with some other folks, and it really just changed all of our lives in a big way. And I'd say Jason's maybe the most. He came home, and it was very obvious. I remember telling my wife, I said, Ryan, Jason and Elizabeth, they're going to be in the mission field. I thought they were going to move to East Asia, honestly. And then that didn't really happen. But several years later, he's our missions pastor, and he's been doing it for, goodness, maybe close to 15 years now. And, he's 20% of every dollar that comes in goes off campus. And so Jason's got a $1.2 million missions budget that he runs. And so we've got folks going all over the world and all over all over Spartanburg, all over the state, all over the country, under Jason's leadership as he, caught that vision, and God's using his amazing giftedness to lead a great missions team.
How long was your first mission trip?
It was a week.
Oh, a week. I thought you said 6 weeks for some reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it was like from the time we said yes till the time we got on the plane was like,
that's pretty quick.
It was 6 weeks. And so, yeah,
most Americans want a little bit more time than that.
Yeah, it was like pressing because, we had to get visas and, so he was like, hey, I need to know by Tuesday, right? And this was on a Sunday. And so
what year was that?
Pretty quick. That was 2008.
Oh, so that was a year before we moved there.
Oh man, wow.
So my first trip there was 2000, and it
Okay.
was for 6-7 weeks.
Oh wow.
And the shock wasn't so much, can we do whatever we were there to do? For some reason, that never concerned me. What concerned me was the food.
Okay.
Okay. Because prior to that, I didn't like rice. And I had Panda Express last night. Not that that's real
awesome.
Chinese food, but
Right.
I didn't like rice. They tried to take me to some Chinese restaurants back in Dallas, and I couldn't even stomach it. I get there, and in 6 weeks, I lost 26 pounds.
Whoa, 26.
So I get home, my mom's welcoming me at the airport, and she's like, what happened? We had to go buy new clothes, and because really everything was too big for me at that point.
Wow.
And
That's
now that's
crazy.
changed over time. I mean, I got used to it, and now I miss the food, most of it.
Right. Yeah.
The dog and cat stuff, I can do without some of that stuff.
Man. Yeah.
But or the bugs or the scorpion on a stick. I don't know if you've ever had stuff
I
like
never
that.
got into that. I saw it, but I was like, and who knows what meat I ate, but I definitely didn't purposefully eat a scorpion on
You
a
can
stick.
order
I saw
chicken,
it.
but you're not
You're not
guaranteed
sure
chicken.
what it is. Yeah. I remember over there, one of our good buddies who had served over there for several years, we were doing a project with his team out far west, and we were eating hot pot, and we were, putting the meat in the boiling oil or whatever, and someone said, "What is this?" And he was like, "Liver, probably." And I was like, "Probably. I don't like that." After you telling me what meat we're eating,
Taking it out of the hot pot. Okay,
Right.
next.
Yeah.
Put something in. Put some broccoli in. I don't eat anything but the
that's
liver.
right. Yeah, ate a lot of vegetables that night. That's for sure.
I mean, we're going to talk about some of these other things you do, but we'll just jump into the chiropractic stuff. So
Okay.
when I went to your website, it almost read like a ministry.
Hmm.
Okay, that's not very typical for a business, but it's something I obviously want to highlight because, most people, especially Christians. I mean, let's be upfront. Most Christians will look at their business as, let's just keep it business.
Hmm.
Let's not add any Jesus to it. Let's not make it overtly Christian or anything like that. So why not just make it a generic chiropractic? Hey, we're here to serve the community. These are our credentials, blah, 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 rather than we're doing it for Jesus. I mean, you're pretty specific on there. I mean, for a business, in my opinion, it's relatively specific.
Well, thank you, man. I would say one thing, leadership of my dad when he was in practice. Like I grew up like sitting in the morning staff meetings with him leading the staff in prayer. And so that was obviously impactful in my life. And we've continued with that, to this day, every morning, we meet in there and we have prayer for the office for the day, for our patients. If, patients call us and ask us to pray for things for them because they know we have that morning staff meeting. So that was, his leadership. And then me knowing that he was praying for patients like in the room with them. And I would hear him doing that. Obviously I would see him doing that. And then as I got into practice some 23 or plus years ago now, I would have patients that had seen him, come to me and say, you'll have no idea how much it meant to me the first day I came in here, X number of years ago, and your dad prayed for me. And I'd never had a doctor do that before, and it meant so much to me. And so that seeing him do that, for all those years, that was just really impactful to me. And I was like, okay, I need to keep that going, because that's kind of the ethos of this practice. And as I would say grew in my faith, the Lord was just really would highlight different verses to me, like Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do it for the Lord. Whether you eat or drink, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. And so that whatever you do, to me means my business. And so I thought, well, okay, let's make sure that we're using our business and leveraging it for God's kingdom, because it's not just about making money and putting food on the table. It's about how can I use this business to give God glory, because he's blessed me with it, and I want to be a blessing to him, through the business. And I think about like Paul. Paul is, we have accounts of him being like a tent maker. Well, Paul would use that skill, and I would imagine that when he traveled through different towns and villages and cities, that he would probably set up shop and make some tents. And then he would use that opportunity to engage with that community as a way to share the gospel with people. That's kind of the way I envision it. And so I think to myself, my goodness, like what better way to be able to be a witness for the Lord than I've got hundreds of people coming into our office every week. And that's hundreds of people that I'm not even going out on the streets and meeting. Like if I was I would say a traditional missionary in some foreign land, where it would be my task to like go out and, okay, today I'm gonna meet 15 different people. Well, I'm only working kind of half a day, but I'll have 20 people come into my room today that I can hopefully positively impact with the love of the Lord. And so I just want to be faithful to what he's blessed me with, and use it as an opportunity to share his love.
You were talking about you're not trying to do it just to make money. Obviously, you're in business, you got to make money, you want to make money for yourself, to be able to pay your employees, to be able to serve them as well. But I notice every time we go in there, there's a big sign up there at the front. It's, whether it be like Hope Remains, I think, or Carolina Pregnancy Center, or there's some others I've never heard of, local ministries that you're trying to encourage people. Sometimes it's, they're supported through maybe a first-time patient or
that's right.
Other ways. Like why advertise that? Because obviously we're in a world now, granted, we're in the South, so a little bit different than if we were in California or New York or some other place like that. But, as we progress into the future, there's clearly a lot of people when they see stuff like that, they don't like it. I don't know if you've ever encountered that or not, but why promote all that to let people know that you're doing it? Like, why do all that? I mean, and just to preface that, I like it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But, why let people know you're doing that?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One, we want to be able to support some local ministries that mean a lot to us. And so we've had to, because there's so many great ones like yours, we've had to like pare down, okay, what are we going to focus on? Because I would say two things. One, I've had a hard time saying no, because I'll see so many great ministries and what they're doing. And I'm like Oprah, like, you need some money and you need some money, you need some money. And then
when you start doing the cars then?
Yes, exactly. And so even recently, the Lord's been working on me is like saying, okay, like you've been, and this is a crazy thing to say, but maybe a little overtly generous to the point that it has caused our business to suffer. Or not suffer, but struggle, I would say would be a better word. And it may have caused us personally to struggle because of treating the business too much like a ministry and not enough like a business. And so we've had to make some changes recently to help us to actually shore up our finances and I won't say stop being so generous, but rather be more smart in the way that we're running things, so that way we don't have a hard time with paying our employees and et cetera, like you said. But on the other side of that, God has continued to meet our needs, and I believe that he will continue to do that. And so as far as like the advertising for the different ministries, yes, what we do is like we pick a different ministry per quarter, and we've kind of settled on the 4 that we're doing for a year or each year over year. And so we'll take that ministry for the quarter and we'll say, hey, if you refer your friends and family to us, then the amount of money that we collect on that first visit, we'll donate that 100% to that ministry to help raise awareness for that ministry and to help support them, financially. And so typically we keep our initial costs low. So your max out of pocket for anybody coming in is going to be $80 for their first visit. That would include like a full exam and 3 sets of x-rays if we had to do the whole spine. So it'd be $80 out of pocket. I would take that $80 and donate it to, say, Hope Remain, CPC, or my cousins. They have 2 children with very severe genetic challenges that they're basically bedridden, wheelchair-ridden, and that's called Drake Radin Foundation. There's no cure for their disease, and they're trying to raise money to actually do research to find a cure, to find help for this genetic disorder. And so that's one of them. And then another one of them we're doing is called the Kid on the Left Ministries, a buddy of mine through church. Josh has he's actually the mayor of Reedville, which is kind of cool.
Reedville's actually
has
its own
mayor. Has its own city.
I thought it was going to be like, I don't know, like Glendale and all those places that are just integrated into Spartanburg or something.
Yeah. Reedville has its own city hall, and he's the youngest and first African American mayor of Reedville. So he was mayor of Reedville when he was like 29 years old.
Cool.
So Josh has a ministry, or I would say, it may not be classified as a ministry as much so as a nonprofit, but it's called Kid on the Left, where he is raising money to help kids who are in a tough financial situation be able to like get into baseball programs because that's kind of where he came up, and he got introduced to the Lord through baseball. So we'll do those 4 per year, rotate those per quarter, and we'll again donate people's first day fees to those ministries to help them out financially and again raise awareness for them. And so what we hope to do with that is let people know that, hey, we're not just about ourselves, right? We're about our community, and obviously we're about the Lord. And I think that from a marketing standpoint, I would hope that it lets our community see, oh, this office isn't just about come see me, give me all your money, and come see me, and I'm going to take a ton of money from you on your first visit. Like, no, like, let's help you get in the door at a reasonable price, and I'm going to actually take that money and give it away. So you know that, like, my heart is actually to help you, and it's not just to get your money.
Well, the thing is, I'm glad you said all that, because if you can't make money as a business, then you can't be generous as a business.
Amen, brother.
And one of the issues I have with, it's funny to say this, is as someone who's been a missionary, who's lived on the field abroad, I've seen a lot of missionaries attempt business and with good, motives and intentions and all that. And some of the businesses had great ideas behind them. But the problem is they were too focused on being generous and not focused on making money. Yeah. There's kind of a balancing act there.
Yes.
You've got to make money to be able to do what you want to do, but you've got to make money to be legitimate, which is why I wrote the book I wrote about having legitimacy on the field, in the mission field, and not just playing around with a business card as if that makes you legit. So, it makes sense. And it makes sense when you're talking about narrowing it down, because sometimes we could be so broad. Do we want the shotgun approach and we just throw out what we can and hope we hit something?
Right.
Or do we want more of a rifle with scope where we're going to be more intentional of, okay, because even for my family, I say no a lot. I say no a lot to people I love, to things I think are good, but they're not our passion.
Yes.
Okay, they're not what we want to do, but I'm cool with saying, when I come across people, say, hey, you need to go check out this ministry over here. Mm-hmm. This would be a great fit for you, but I have nothing to do with it.
Right.
But I'm going to put my time, effort, and money into stuff that I love, that God has given me a passion for, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think sometimes we think it's wrong to say no. I know sometimes it can hurt to say no. Mm-hmm. I do understand that. But it's not wrong to say no.
That's good. And God's been teaching me that. And I would say one other one that I forgot to mention is Impact Sports, who, again, we talked about earlier.
Of course, they had a huge impact on your life.
Support them. And that's what, a couple of years ago when Ryan and I were narrowing that, kind of field of giving down, we had to say, what are we truly passionate about? And for me, it was sports ministry and children's ministry. And so CPC, Drake Radin, Kid on the Left, Impact, all those have, CPC's not, or Drake Radin not have anything to do with sports, but they're obviously supporting children, and then the others are kind of a mixture of both oftentimes. And that comes from obviously like you said, the impact had on my life and the impact Upward had on my life and introduced me to the gospel. And then the children's ministry thing, she and I know we may get into this, several years ago, we had triplets that ended up passing away. And so that deeply, affected our lives. And from that, we've had this passion for how can we help children, right? And children's ministries and folks that have gone through difficult times like that or may go through that. And so that's where kind of the passion for children's ministry and sports ministry came about in our lives.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because the triplets, you passed away. Like, share what you don't share, anything you don't want to share, but share what you want. And just because obviously, sports isn't, well, chiropractor work, chiropractic
work. Yeah, chiropractic. Yeah, that's
chiropractic work.
Yeah,
I kept meaning to. I forgot to ask you earlier.
That's right.
What are the actual terms I should be using?
That's cool.
So chiropractic work does relate to sports in some ways, but I don't think you do chiropractic clinics, or have you? Like some doctors do medical clinics on the mission field.
I have never done that. No, I've got friends that have,
but it is somewhat related to sports in that a lot of athletes love going to chiropractors and things like that. But the flip side, the children's obviously has nothing to do with the chiropractic work or the sports work, but it really it was born out of an experience.
Yes.
So. Right. Why don't you explain, maybe just go a little, obviously you already mentioned it, why don't you just go a little bit deeper? Because, sometimes an experience can be so painful that you just don't want anything to do with it. You don't want anything to do with those type of ministries just because of the history of it and the pain that might come, that people experience from it. But you and your wife instead obviously have gone through that. You've gone through the grieving. But instead of ignoring it, you've really wrapped your arms around, how do we serve from the position that you're in?
Yes, and that's by God's grace, I would say, for certain. So 2005, again, kind of dating myself and this show, which I know we're not supposed to do, but can't help it. So 2005.
We're getting old.
There you go. Right. So we were pregnant with triplets. My wife was pregnant with triplets. How that came about was we were having a challenge getting pregnant, and I was like, all right, let's just go straight to an endocrinologist. Went to an endocrinologist. They was like, yeah, she had a situation called PCOS, which she wasn't producing mature eggs. And so they said that was probably stemming from her youth of doing really heavy gymnastics. She was really into competitive gymnastics and cheer and stuff. And they said that might have messed up, some hormones, whatever the case may be. That's what we were dealing with. They gave us one pill. They said this should help mature the eggs. So there's less than 1% chance if you have multiples, but it's a possibility. And so we were like, all right, first month, get pregnant, and it's triplets. And so the doctor was like,
you were
wow.
That 1%.
Yeah, we were under 1%.
You were the 1%ers.
Yes. And so that was an interesting, doctor's visit. Obviously, we come out of there because at first they were like, oh, congratulations. They did ultrasound. It's like, oh, you're pregnant with twins. And we were like, oh, that's amazing. My wife had always kind of had this vision of having twins, and she always wanted them. She always talked about it. And so we were like, it's so cool. And then they were like, wait a minute, there's three. You have triplets. And then we were like, oh boy, this is a different scenario, right? And so as it would progress, things were going fine, and then until they weren't. And so 24 weeks, she goes into preterm labor, and a few days later, she delivers all three children. They're born 1.5, 1.7, 1.9. That's their weight.
Wow.
In the NICU, Reese, Vivian, and Sophia. Reese lives a day. Vivian lives 3 weeks. Sophia lives 3 months, and they're all gone. And obviously out of that, tremendous sense of loss. As we have.
Were they in the NICU the whole time?
Yes. So they thought Sophia was going to make it, and then she got a infection just from, getting stuck with IVs a bazillion times and whatever. And so 3 funerals in 3 months, and that was tough. And so we obviously struggled with that. God blessed us a year later. Well, a year and a half later, we had Avery, our daughter. And so God was very faithful in that to us, and to give us a child of natural birth. And we're very thankful for that. It was a girl. All three were girls before. God gave us a girl in Avery. We're so thankful. And now, a couple years down the road from that, we start having this feeling of kind of individually that we should adopt. And that was a unique experience, because at first, like, we didn't want any other kids because the traumatic experience and Avery's birth and carriage for my wife was really difficult and whatnot as well. And it was kind of touch and go at some different points with her. And she kind of struggled with breathing when she was born, talking about Avery, our daughter. And so we were like, I don't know if we want any more kids or we want to try.
She's okay now.
She's good. Yeah, man. And God's using her. We were talking the other day, just what a neat turnaround. Like, she struggles to breathe that she's born and was in the NICU for a while, like a day or so herself, until things kind of kicked in and started working. And then now she's using her voice as a ministry, and that she's singing and taking worship ministry studies at North Greenville. And so it's just what a turnaround there. But so a year and a half after Avery's year and a half old, we get pregnant again, end up miscarrying about 10 or 12 weeks. So after that, we're like, man, all right, we're done. Like, she's our child. Like, this is it. And then God just kind of doesn't let us go in that after a while. And my wife is having thoughts that she wants to have more kids. I'm like, no, because I'm not putting your body through this again, and the trauma and whatnot. And then kind of individually, God starts working on me and then working on her on, y'all should consider adoption. And we don't talk to each other about it until one day when we do. And my wife brings it up. She's like, hey, I think we should consider adoption. I was like, I was meaning to talk to you about that. And 9 months later, we have our first son in Isaac, and he was born.
That seems quick.
Yeah, dude, the process went super fast for us. Like, we got I'll say 9 months later. It might have been a year, because we start filling out the paperwork and do all the home studies, et cetera, et cetera. That was probably 3 months. But from the time we got officially approved until Isaac was born, it was 9 months.
Local adoption?
Yes, he was born like a couple cities away in Greenwood.
Okay.
And so that was a blessing. My wife got to be in the delivery room when he was born. And then a few years later, God starts working on us again. And it ended up being 5 years. All the kids are 5 years apart, like almost exactly. And so we have Tyson. And so Tyson is our second son, and we ended up adopting him as well. He was born in Charleston. And so, God just knit our family together just amazingly well. And I think it came out of this, tragic kind of experience where, had we not experienced the loss of the girls, had we not experienced the miscarriage, I don't think we would have had the two boys, most likely, or Avery for that matter, because we would have been, we would have had these triplets. And so, God knew what he was doing. And in that, like, we obviously, when we lost the girls, like, we're soul searching in a big way. And God's taken us on this amazing spiritual journey that, quite honestly, I'm still on 20 years later. And one of the things that he kept bringing us back to was that, the verse about, with the comfort with which you receive, use that to go and comfort someone else. And so one thing that Ryan and I saw immediately from our experience was that within a few months, one of my good buddies, his wife ends up delivering early at like 21 weeks, and the child passes away. And so then we were able to be there for them. And then a few months after that, another one of my good buddies, first child dies of SIDS at the daycare. And we were able to be there for them in their loss. And, we were so grateful that God allowed us to have the experience of loss first, so that way we could be a comfort for my friends and our friends. Because when we were going through our situation, there was not many people around, and particularly in our peer group, that could speak to what we were dealing with, because no one had gone through it. You know, thankfully we had a couple older folks in our church, like I'm talking like older, like in their 60s or 50s at that time, which was old, now it's not, that had gone through a loss of children in the past or miscarriage, and they were able to reach out to us. But that was super great and wonderful and kind. But I think it's different versus people in your peer group, right? Being able to be there for you and say, hey, I just went through this a couple months ago. And so we were grateful that we had gone through that challenge, because then we were able to be there, you know, for our friends.
Yeah, and your pastor just recently adopted DJ.
Yes.
So I know there's like a strong adoption kind of atmosphere, I guess you would say, at the mill.
Yes, definitely.
Which isn't always in every church or in most churches.
Yeah, man, he's done a great job just stimulating that through the years, and really, I mean, that his passion for that existed way before he ever adopted, and so this was back in 2009, 2010, I would say, that we kind of had our first like adoption eye-opening classes, you know, by some local adoption agencies that came in and taught like an hour on the benefits and why you would do it, and et cetera, et cetera. And that one of those classes I went to, where God really started working on my heart of like, why not do this? You know, God was just very clear to me, like you know, me personally, like I've been adopted into his family, into God's family. And that's, the scripture's clear on that. And then also God was reminding me like, hey, you know what? Like your stepdad adopted you essentially as his son and never treated you any differently. And your stepmom, like she took you in, and when you would go visit with them, like she treated you just like, you know, her kid as well. And so like God had given me this ability to kind of see like how I had been adopted, so to speak, and literally into his family. And so my eyes should be open to that as well. My heart should be open to that as well. And so, yeah, DJ and Laurel, like several years ago, they were on the path to adopt from Ethiopia, and something happened with the agency over there, and they lost all their money, and they shut down the country. And so they were like right in the final stages of getting a kid from over there, and it shut down. But God never like closed that door on his heart, and Laurel's either. And so they had an opportunity that come up recently, and so yeah, she's official now.
And I would say, you know, it's not, you know, a lot of people would say that when they hit something painful like that, like, where's God? Why did he let that happen to you? Yet, as you were talking, you were also sharing, you weren't discounting the pain, you weren't ignoring the pain or the grieving process, but you were also not ignoring the fact that God could redeem it. Even admitting that you had struggles of even the thought of adoption, even though it started popping in your head and your wife said, and you're like, well, you know, I mean, I could completely understand why anybody would be like, I don't think so. You know, that's a lot to go through. Yet you're showing that through that, you were able to adopt twice. And, you know, the pain that you experienced, God recovered. I don't know if that's really the right word, but redeemed it, you could say, to get you thinking about these kids. In fact, we haven't released it yet, so I'm not even sure what order this is going to be in yet, but the last episode I recorded was a friend of mine in Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
Who's from Texas. I've known him for a long time. But him and his wife are huge into adoption, and they adopted 2 kids from China.
Oh, wow.
He talks a little bit about some of the horror stories he saw with orphan care in certain places in the world, in Thailand, you know, their struggles with trying to serve in orphan care in Thailand. Now they're in Taiwan. He started talking about we had a long discussion about a really opinionated discussion of what every church I think should be doing, because I've got thoughts on that. But I mean, I love the fact that the mill is doing something in that. They're just not looking at missions as, oh, we just go and evangelize people and convert them.
Right.
They're looking at it as there's also this other part, caring for widows and orphans. You know, we tend to set, I don't know what it is, even though it says care for widows and orphans, why we set that aside. You know, maybe it's our American independent mindset. You know, they just need to suck it up, buttercup, and, you know, do your thing. But in reality, we're to care for widows and orphans. Yeah. But part of our discussion was not everyone's designed to adopt, because adoption's hard.
Right. Yeah.
I've
Sure.
seen friends go through horror stories with adoption, or even fostering. Fostering can be even more difficult because you don't know if you're going to be able to keep them or adopt them. They could just
Right.
in and out. I have friends who do that constantly.
Yeah.
But the reality is they love it.
Yeah. I think it's a calling. I really do. And to a point, we started the foster, not we, my wife and our church started the foster and adoption care team, which is a ministry of the church to help folks that are doing those two things, that are fostering and adopting, because of the recognition of how tough it can be. And so we have a fully dedicated team of leaders that is underneath our missions ministry, and it's led by I believe it's led by Bonnie West and Jenny Howard, and they are helping to give support to the families that are fostering and adopting, because of, like you said, how it's a blessing, but it can also be a challenge.
And part of adoption is, especially from someone like you, obviously other non-Christians can adopt too, but when it comes from a Christian family, there's also automatic gospel influence on someone who we don't know if they would have that kind of influence on their life.
Right.
If it wasn't for someone stepping in. And I would say for someone who's not designed, I like to use the word designed rather than called, because I really think God really has designed someone to do it.
That's neat.
That even if they're not designed to officially adopt or to foster, it's like missions and evangelism. Maybe you're not designed as the gifted evangelist. Okay. So what? Maybe you're not designed to live in a place like India or to go to a slum in India or Africa. But I would argue any day and every day that you're called to do something. Maybe it's giving, maybe it's praying, encouraging missionaries on the field. You could turn that and apply it to adoption families. That a family who's not called to adopt should still be involved somehow. Maybe it's caring, or how can we serve a family, especially, adoption families who, some families need more help than others. So how do you reach out and care for them? How do you reach out and encourage them?
Yeah.
Maybe it's, especially if it's a baby, maybe the overwhelmingness of all the diapers and stuff.
Yes, that's
kind of like having a baby.
Yes.
A biological baby. Some families need help. Even if they had the money to do it, some families have to raise money to adopt. Yes. They have the money to sustain themselves month to month.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't have the money to adopt, like the adoption fees, depending on where you're going.
And all that. That's right. Yeah.
And so they need outside help to step in and be part of that process. And so they're just as critical in the process as the parents who are doing the actual adoption.
That's right.
Because sometimes they need help.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why I think every church should have some kind of adoption ministry of some kind, whatever it should be. Simply because South Carolina, 3,000 kids in foster care.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, there's at least 3,000 evangelical churches in South Carolina. Wow. So do the math.
Yeah, that's right.
In reality, in our state alone, we should not have any foster kids. Like you'll have them in the system officially, but they should not be without a home, even if it's temporary. They should not be. I don't know where they put foster kids if they don't have a home, but wherever that is, we shouldn't even have places like that.
Numerically, you're right. It shouldn't,
because we do have enough churches. So I'm curious, because of this experience with the triplets and the adoption and all that you guys you and Laura have gone through. Like, did the books, I know you've written 4 books and one of them's a kid's book. Did any of that influence that? Or is the book stuff just some random desire you had?
No, definitely. So the first book, Thy Will Be Done, you put a question mark at the end of that. And then the subtitles, Trust in God in the Midst of Suffering, Pain, or Loss. So that's directly as an outflow of our experience in having and losing the triplets. During that time period, I really felt God tell me, like, immediately when my wife went into preterm labor. That night, I'm sitting with her that first night in the hospital, and God was just like really clear, like, you need to write down what you're experiencing and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And so I just started keeping a journal, and that journal 7 years later turned into an actual book. And it took a while, because, you pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. You know how it goes. And I had, I remember it was a couple years into it, and I had a family friend who's written several books and ghostwrites for people and stuff, which, this is an aside, I didn't know that term ghostwrite until I kind of got to talking to her, because one time, I'm going taking a real tangent here. My wife and I were at a friend's wedding in Myrtle Beach, and the couple did vows, like their own vows to one another, not just like the ones that the preacher reads. And my buddy leans over to me, actually one of the buddies I was talking about a minute ago, and he was like, dude, that was totally ghostwritten. And I remember thinking, like, wow, why would he say that their vows were written by ghosts? Like, are they, like, is he insinuating that they're like devil worshippers, or like what?
Like demons
like
floating
demons
around?
Like, what? And that was never lost. And I thought he was just drinking too much, or something. He had said something. And
well, it was a wedding.
then,
I mean,
yes, absolutely. And then years
Jesus
later,
brought out the best wine,
there we go. Absolutely. So I'm not judging him. I'm just thinking, I was like, this term ghostwritten. And then later on, I was like, I learned, and when I started getting into book writing, that, oh, that's an actually literary term for ghostwriting. So anyway, this lady, she reads what I think is my opus, man. Like, I've just poured out my heart and soul into this journal, right? And so I type it up and I give it to her, and she takes it to the beach and reads it while she's at the beach, and she comes back and she's like, Gabe, this is not a book. She's like, this is your journal. She's like, and quite honestly, no one's ever going to read this, because no one knows who you are and no one cares who you are. You're just this dude from Spartanburg, South Carolina that nobody knows. She was like, if you were on the national platform and you were some NBA star, yeah, you would have a right to sell this, your journal, but no one cares about this. She was like, you got to go back and make this into a book. And so she gave me some serious pointers on how to do that. So that took a lot longer. So 7 years later, get an official book. So it's out there, Amazon, whatever, check it out, buy it, electronic and paperback. And out of that experience, like, it wasn't too long after that, the Lord was just like, hey, you need to do another one. And I knew that it was going to be based on Philippians 4:4-9, which is the, passage about God giving perfect peace, and how we think about positive things, and that we present our requests to God, and that He's going to give us peace that surpasses all understanding. So that passage had always been very, very dear to me. And so God was just like, work that out. So interestingly, I'm in this big country in East Asia, but in the western part of it, and I'm sitting in a massage chair getting a foot massage after a long day teaching basketball. And the dude that's full-time over there, we're sitting beside each other, and he just really challenges me and like starts hashing out some stuff with me about doing it, writing it. And at the end of that trip, we're in a very large airport in the western part of this country, in a big, nice Starbucks, and I've got like a 7-hour delay until our next flight. And man, it just starts flowing. And so God just gives me the whole kind of outline for that book in that airport. And, came home, and wasn't nearly as long of a process. Probably took me 1.5 2 years to get that one done. So that book is called Every Little Thing, 6 Small Steps to Perfect Peace. And it is based on that Philippians 4:4-9. The Every Little Thing part actually comes from a Bob Marley song, so I won't spoil the prelude to the book. I'll let you get that. You can get that on Amazon or on Apple Books. Third book was I call him my uncle. He was actually just my dad's best friend, who was also a chiropractor. They had been friends forever. He retired from chiropractic after like 45 years and was kind of lost, so to speak, and like didn't know what he's supposed to do next in life after going to work every day for 45 years. And I said, I was like, Uncle Ed, you have 45 years of knowledge about how to run a very successful practice. He practiced in Johnson City, Tennessee. I was like, let's put our heads together and let's write a book and just put down some of, your knowledge and my knowledge from 20 years or whatever. And so we wrote a book called I'm Graduating Chiropractic College, Now What? That's just available in digital format for, any chiropractic student. So far, like he's the only one that's bought it. So we got a little work to do on that one. And then the fourth
You
one,
need to get to Sherman College and start advertising.
I know I did. They're not interested. What we realize is like a lot of chiropractic students, they think they know it all anyway, right? So like they don't need to they don't need to pay $18 for my book, right? So anyway, we got it done. It's out there, and we'll maybe one day we'll make our $500 back that we invested in it.
Maybe you should change the subtitles. After you figure out you don't know it all,
Oh,
now this is the next step.
That would have been much better right there. I failed at chiropractic. Now what? Right? That's what we should have called it. And then the other one is just a small children's book that my daughter and I did together several years ago. She's 18 now. This was probably, goodness, I don't know, several years ago. And it's called Ham Travels to Shanghai, China. And so it's kind of was born out of when our middle son, Isaac, when he was little, we would teach him Jesus loves me. At the end, or in that verse, it would say, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so, little ones to him belong. And it always sounded like he was saying, little ones to Ham be Wong, when he was saying it. And I was like, hey, there's an idea for a book character, and we're going to have Ham travel to different cities and experience the culture, meet people, and then share his faith. And so we did a little digital children's book, and a girl, Shelby Prince from our church, who's an amazing illustrator, she did the illustrations for us. And so that's on Amazon as well.
That's cool. And I'll put the description or the link to that.
Oh yeah,
cool. to your Amazon.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I would assume there's a link for all the books, like they can see them all at one time.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
I'll figure it out.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll put it on there. Okay, I'm sure if you're on there as an author, there's something there.
Okay, sweet.
That has them all listed.
Thank you,
and I'll send it to you so you can have it.
See, this is what I need right here. So,
So you're also going back to the sports. Are you still a board member for Impact Sports?
I rolled off.
So you rolled off. But for a period of time, you served as a board member. And I just wanted to mention that because, some people are like, well, what can I do with an organization like that, like a missions-focused organization, if I'm not called to be a missionary? Well, simple. You could, beyond just being a donor and a prayer, you can actually serve as a board member because even though you're a chiropractor, you're also a businessman. So there's that experience that benefits a nonprofit like that from managing a business, just those all those things you do and oversee. I mean, there's skills to that help a nonprofit. And then you have a podcast. What's it called?
So it's called Lost Boys to Found Fathers podcast. So that was me and a buddy, Will Haycox. We had a church together. That was birthed out of Will and his wife Hannah, unfortunately, losing their first child to stillbirth about 5 years ago now, and maybe going on 6 actually. And Will came to me. Someone had directed him to the book that we were talking about a minute ago, to Thy Will Be Done, to help him kind of work through and process, because that book does have like reflection questions at the end of each chapter to help people deal with not just child loss, but any really challenging, difficult situation that someone may be going through. I think that there's a lot of overlap in that if it's trauma, right? And so with that being said, Will got the book, he kind of worked through it, and then he reached out to me and was like, hey, man, I read your book. We go to church together. Someone suggested that we get together to talk. So Will and I started getting together and just, he was asking me questions and just kind of helping him along the journey, right? Because it was really, really fresh at this point with he and his wife. And so after a few months, Will was like, we need to do a men's counseling group for guys that have gone through child loss, because men typically don't like to talk about things and we want to keep it in, and that can be not good at times, most of the time. And so he's like, let's get folks together. Well, this was in the middle of COVID, and I was like, brother, that's a neat idea, but A, men ain't gonna talk anyway, so they're not gonna come to the group. And then B, we're in the middle of this pandemic and you can't really get groups together right now. I was like, my nephew has some podcast equipment and I bet he'll let us borrow it. Why don't we just do that? And so that's kind of where that started. So we've been doing that for 4 years now, like 4.5 years. We've got, I don't know, 100 plus episodes, something like that, out there, and just really dealing with, initially dealing with, hey, these are all the challenges we had coming out of child loss that we knew that we needed help with and that we figured other guys might too. And we've kind of transitioned that also into, now he has a daughter that's well and good. He's got another son now that's well and good. What's it look like to be a godly man? How do we be good fathers? How do we be good husbands? And so we kind of bounce back and forth a little bit between how do you deal with challenging and difficult times in your life, and then how do you honor God in your marriage, and how do you honor God in your fatherhood?
That's cool. And so where can they find the podcast?
It's on, any podcast platform, and we've got our audios up on YouTube as well. We usually do Facebook Live when we record now also. So yeah, wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, whatever. It's on all the Podbean kind of pushes it out to all the different platforms.
Okay.
For us, YouTube. So yeah, it's called Lost Boys to Found Fathers.
Okay. So we'll put the link to that
Thank you.
In the description as well. So to just kind of wrap this up, because I know you got to get back to the practice because you weren't originally supposed to work today, but you got to.
Got called in. Yep.
So I got to get you up there. So what would you say, why don't you give some final thoughts of just what you would say to non-vocational ministry believers, mm-hmm. and how they can serve or how they can use their skills? What would you like to encourage them in that respect?
I'm going to steal some information or a line from one of the popular Christians books of the past 20 years, where the opening line said, "It's not about you anymore." And I think that came from Purpose Driven Life. Okay.
Yep.
Rick Warren. And I remember reading that again, that phrase again and again and again. And I was like, man, what's he talking about? It's not about me anymore. Until it finally hit me that God was like, hey, dummy, you're a Christian now. Your life is about leveraging your life for me, not for your personal gain. And so I think that's one thing I would just encourage folks to remember, and encourage myself. It's like going to work. Yes, God has called us to work. He's called us to provide for our family. And we want to do that to the best of our ability, because that's going to honor the Lord. And in doing so, how are we using our vocation to also honor him? It shouldn't be that there's church life and there's work life. We are Christians. So our following Christ and the lordship of Christ should reign over every part of our life, our marriage, our parenting, our extracurricular activities, what we do at work, what we're watching, what we're listening to, what we're reading. Christ should have lordship over everything. And in doing so, we have an opportunity with our vocation to hopefully really bring him honor and glory and fame and make him famous too. And, a thing that God has really taught me through the years, and I would say even since I got involved with Impact years back in 2008, was you don't just have to go overseas for a week or 10 days or 6 weeks or a month or years to use that as your time to share Jesus with people. Do that every day. The Bible, the Lord says, right? As you are going, make disciples, not when you go once a year overseas, tell people about Jesus. Let's do that every day. And God's still working on me on that and trying to make me, I think, into a more faithful disciple of him. And I'm thankful for his patience. And again, secondly, be smart and do your best. Try to make your business as successful as it can be, because then you can do good from it, and be smart about it. Because again, I think I've personally been not so smart about it in years past, and I'm trying to help our business be more successful so that way we can give away more in a responsible way. And so I think we've got to be honorable in all that we do for work and do it to our best ability, because that's going to make it's going to give God glory. It's not about people looking at us like, oh, he's great or she's great or they do a great job or man, they're so smart. But like, no, it's not us. It's God working through us. And so make sure that he's getting the glory and not ourselves.
Hey, y'all, thank you for listening or watching. I hope you were encouraged by Gabe's story, just from the time he became a believer to just, listening to the tragedy that him and his wife experienced in their life, how God how God redeemed them in those situations, how God is using them today to serve people through sports, through children's ministry, through orphan ministry, through caring for families who are struggling because they're pregnant or they're thinking about, I know one, the ministry, Carolina Pregnancy Center, they deal with a lot of people who are considering abortions, and just the fact that he's willing to pour into those ministries. He's not a vocational minister. He's not a vocational missionary. He's not a vocational pastor. He's a chiropractor. He is, I hate to use the word average believer because he's really not average, and believers really aren't average. But I say that because he's not in vocational ministry, yet he's having a massive impact in both his local community in Spartanburg as well as around the world. And so I hope his life, his story, his testimony encourages you, challenges you, and pushes you to look at your life, your skills, your vocation, and see how God can use you. You don't need to be a pastor. You don't need to be a missionary. You just have to be the disciple that God created you to be when he redeemed you by the blood of Christ. Because making disciples is not a call for just professional ministry people. It is a call, a command for every believer in every vocation. And so again, thank you for listening or watching. Don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're visiting us on. It's a little act of kindness you can do that tremendously helps us. And don't forget to comment, especially if you're on YouTube. Please put your comments, share your thoughts in the comment section. We would love to engage you in that area. And as we close, don't forget, as I love to say, live bold, live courageously, live Enviado.